We should only admit into this country those who share our values and respect our people. In the Cold War, we had an ideological screening test. The time is overdue to develop a new screening test for the threats we face today. I call it extreme vetting. I call it extreme vetting.
Welcome back to the World Over Live. That was Donald Trump announcing his plan to battle ISIS in a speech from Youngstown, Ohio, earlier this week. How does that vision contrast with that of his opponent, Hillary Clinton? Meanwhile, the Obama administration announced the release of more detainees from Guantanamo Bay. For analysis, I'm joined by an advisor to the Anti-Terrorism Caucus of the House of Representatives and a foreign policy advisor to Donald Trump, Dr. Waleed Phares. Welcome back to the program.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I want your reaction to this. What does Donald Trump mean by extreme vetting? What does that look like practically?
Well, he's coming from no vetting, wrong vetting that the Obama administration has applied, which means you don't ask them if they are jihadists, if they are Salafists, if they believe in the caliphate, none of that. And then to what we need right now, which is we need to know about the ideology. If you are not part of this ideology, then the process will begin normally and logically.
Now, those on the other side of you say, and I've talked to them this week, we have plenty of screening measures in place. There's a 2-year refugee process, they say. We screen these people thoroughly. How much more extreme are you going to get?
Well, let me give you the news.
Okay.
Among those who are doing the screening and those who are advising for the screening are some groups that are linked to the Muslim Brotherhood. So are the Muslim Brotherhood helping us with the screening? Oh, this guy is a rebel, this guy is a moderate, and we end up having people either in Europe or here who are actually radical. Number two, we need to have with us NGOs from Syrian or Iraqi backgrounds who are secular, who are moderate, who are with us. That's what Mr. Trump was trying to say. We need to make sure that these are like the dissidents who came from Cuba or Vietnam or parts of the Soviet Union. Then, of course, we will be welcoming them. We need to know that, but we don't have that way to
You don't know that, you don't have that data right now.
We don't have it right now for a simple reason, Raymond. You and I discussed it many, many times. The Obama/Clinton administration, as of 2009, removed any reference to ideology. So when you do that, and I warned that 4 years ago, if you remove that, we cannot vet.
I want to talk about the number of Muslim refugees who have come into the country, 30,000 in 2016 so far. What does that tell you? Is that a concern to you?
Look, we had many of these numbers before. The concern that I have is why is the Obama administration pushing these refugees to be relocated here at a time they can resettle them inside Syria in the northeastern part of Syria, which is as large as Lebanon, and the local Kurdish and Sunni moderates and the Christians have told us, they've testified at the European Parliament and in Congress, bring the refugees to us on our own soil. So what is it behind this policy of uprooting the Syrians and bringing them to the United States? It's political. It's vote. It's ideology.
You think it's to tilt the vote in their direction?
There is no other explanation, because if you don't have, let's suppose a refugee is coming from a country controlled by the communists, from A to Z. I understand. But part of Syria is free. Why are you bringing them to the United States if they can stay on their own soil?
In the same speech on Monday, Donald Trump proposed suspending immigration from dangerous regions in the world. Listen.
In addition to screening out all members of the sympathizers of terrorist groups, we must also screen out any who have hostile attitudes toward our country or its principles, or who believe that Sharia law should supplant American law. To put these new procedures in place, we will have to temporarily suspend immigration from some of the most dangerous and volatile regions of the world that have a history of exporting terrorism.
What regions of the world is Donald Trump referring to here?
Let me give you a couple quick examples. Here we have migrants leaving Syria, parts of Syria, going through the Balkans into Europe, and then going to the immigration authorities and telling them, oh, we are with democracy, we are with freedom, we are fleeing both either the Assad regime or ISIS. At the same time, NGOs detect that these persons have a Facebook whereby they are, they are posing with jihadists. I mean, this is incredible. That's why we need to do the screening on multiple levels. Social media is one, NGOs is two, and educating our screeners. I mean, I have lectured to intelligence agencies without naming at this point in time, and their analysts told me we can't operate without this information, without the ideological information.
Italy is warning that some of these ISIS fighters could navigate the Mediterranean and penetrate Europe, and that they will disguise themselves as refugee seekers, asylum seekers. Is that a concern for the United States? I mean, doesn't the proximity protect us?
I met with many Italian politicians and diplomats over the past 6-7 months. They told me the same thing. And they told me once these refugees/non-refugee, meaning jihadists posing as refugees, because Italy wants to take real refugees. But once these jihadists are on Italian soil, they are on European soil. And if they are there, later on they could travel to the United States, Canada, and other countries. With ease, of course, with visas and everything.
Well, this begs the question. If you're screening refugees and people trying to get into the United States, exposing them to extreme vetting, are you also going to extremely vet anyone seeking to come to the United States from the EU, since they don't have the same level of screening or admission policies?
The principle, you know, the word extreme or not extreme, this is in politics. The reality is we don't want to have jihadists coming to the United States. Should they come from Sweden? Should they come from another planet? That's the essence, the philosophy of the vetting process. And that's where we have a political battle with this administration and with the Clinton administration if she wins, because they don't want to recognize there is an ideology.
I want to show you the reaction to Mr. Trump's speech. NATO Supreme Allied Commander Admiral James Stavridis had this to say when he was asked about Trump's foreign policy speech on MSNBC's Morning Joe.
What really was lacking in the speech was anything about how the interagency of the government would work together, how it would use intelligence, how it would use cyber, private-public cooperation, strategic communication. The only strategic communication I heard was, "I hate Muslims." That's not going to help us much in the Muslim world.
Your reaction to that?
I never heard the term "I hate Muslims." I never heard the term "I hate." This is the propaganda of the Clinton-Obama camp, who would criticize anybody who's trying to find a solution. I myself, as an advisor, if I talk about the jihadists, they would call me Islamophobe. And the Arab and Muslims talk about jihadists. So this is to tell you that the arguments of the other camp are completely failing.
What about the arrest of this very vitriolic British cleric, Islamic cleric, Anjem Choudhury, who was found guilty this week of instigating and fomenting radicalism via YouTube out of the UK. The UK authorities arrested him. Is this a good move, or why did they allow him to sit and continue doing this for so long?
This is a good, very, very, very late, extremely late. You know, talking about extreme vetting, extreme late in this case. Oh, he has been doing this. He's a public figure of jihadi support. He actually in public supported Al-Qaeda and ISIS. So, of course, this is a model that Europeans and Americans should follow, not in terms just of arresting, that's the last stage, but detecting. That's the crucial matter.
Will other Muslim countries want to work with Donald Trump if they perceive that he wants to block somehow their people? And that is the narrative in the wider media.
Well, let me tell you something. I have been on Arab media almost every day since he made that speech. And since he delivered his first foreign policy affairs speech in April.
Right.
And we have discussed those issues. Guess what? Many Arab leaders and politicians and NGOs, I'm not talking about the Muslim Brotherhood. I'm not talking about the Iranian regime. That we know they are against him because he's going to break their lobbies. He's going to actually push back against them. But a majority of Arab politicians have told me, some of them in semi-public, others in other channels, that of course they would work with Mr. Trump. They want him actually to change his narrative in a different way.
Meaning what?
They want him to say, for example, that we and the Arab world are going to be working together. That's what he did a week ago in his speech. He said, I want to reach out to President Sisi. I want to reach out to King Abdullah of Jordan. It's going in the right direction.
I want to share this with you. Vice President Joe Biden attacked Donald Trump at a campaign rally for Hillary Clinton in Scranton, Pennsylvania on Monday.
Look, Trump's ideas are not only profoundly wrong, they're very dangerous and they're very un-American. They reveal a profound ignorance of our Constitution. It's a recipe for playing into the hands, and I will end this because you've been standing so long. It's a recipe for playing in the hands of terrorists and their propaganda.
Is this playing into the hands of terrorists?
Well, the narrative of the Obama-Clinton administration and their brilliant ideas have left behind over the past 7 years 1 million people killed and or wounded, 5 million refugees. So which narrative is more efficient? The one of a politician seeking the presidency or the one of incumbents that left disaster behind?
15 Guantanamo Bay inmates released this week by the Obama administration. Rather, the announcement of their release was made public. Your thoughts on that? Does this make us safer? The idea being we're not holding these people any longer. We're releasing them to the United Arab Emirates, and therefore this will help the Muslim world understand that we're not out to get them.
This is second grader thinking in political science and in Middle Eastern studies, because these people, these jihadi leaders, are going to become what? Star jihad on YouTube. They're going to go and fill the YouTube and fill the internet with statements, we are the heroes, we went there, we were strong. So these infidels or these enemies have no stamina to keep us and to maintain Guantanamo because of what you have done. Because you fought on the ground, the jihadis, America had to release the prisoners.
Wow. Twitter this week announced it is going to shut down 235,000 Twitter accounts related to ISIS, ISIS propaganda, and those fomenting more of this radicalism. A good idea?
It's a good idea, but you know me, I have a much more comprehensive strategy. Shutting down those who are extremely dangerous and specifically calling for violence, yes. We need to work with NGOs to go on Twitter, the more the better, and be anti-jihadists and defeat them in the debate. That's what we need to have. That's what we need to do, and we are not.
Walid Phares, always insightful. Thanks for being here. Walid Phares' latest book, The Lost Spring, U.S. Policy in the Middle East and Catastrophes to Avoid, is still available at bookstores everywhere.